This video is called My Take on the Sega Saturn. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos over the years and I've heard a lot of stuff about Sega Saturn and the release of the Sega Saturn and what the Sega Saturn was supposed to be able to do. Then Sega did this, Sega did that to it. But this is what I think of the Sega Saturn and what I think was really happening here. I don't think for 1 minute Sega was going to release a 2D console. It makes absolutely no sense. If we think about it in a logical way, why would Sega release a 2D console when Neo Geo already had a 2D powerhouse console out and they released it in 1990? So why would Sega 4 years down the line say, oh, you know what, I'm going to release a console equally as powerful as a Neo Geo? And this makes no sense. That's one reason why it makes no sense. Second reason it makes no sense at all. Sega were going towards 3D. They've been going towards 3D since about 1992 with the release of Virtual Fighter. Then Virtual Racing and Daytona, then later on Sega Rally Virtual Cop and so forth. So why would Sega make a 2D console knowing that those arcade games, what were big hits in the arcade, especially Daytona and Virtual Fighter, wouldn't be able to port to their console? It makes absolutely no sense. There's no way Sega went out there to release a 2D console. This is all, in my opinion, all complete, utter made up stuff, or just doesn't ring any truth to me at all. And besides that as well, point number 3, Sega already released a 32X, what was capable of 3D, as we saw with Virtual Fighter and Virtual Racing. So why would they put Virtual Fighter on a 32X, then release the next generation console what couldn't handle Virtual Fighter and only handle 2D games like, say for example, Metal Slug, what was on the Neo Geo? Why would they do that? It makes absolutely no sense at all. Sega have always been at the forefront of pushing games forward, not pushing games back. And 2D would have been pushing games back, especially when in the arcade it wasn't just Sega producing 3D games, Namco was as well. As you saw in the release of the PlayStation, when if Namco wasn't involved with Sony, then the PlayStation would have never took off in the first place. So there's no way, in my opinion, Sega made the Sega Saturn for a 2D purpose. That this doesn't ring any truth to me at all. If me being a Sega fan, I've always grew up with Sega. I've always known Sega to be pushing consoles to the next level every time they release one. The Master System was more powerful than the NES. The Mega Drive obviously was more powerful than the Master System. Then Nintendo released the Super Nintendo, and Sega released the Mega CD. And it went on like that. Sega always trying to be at the forefront of technology and pushing the gaming industry forward. So for them to say, oh, you know, Sega had to rush this design thing and put an extra chip in for 3D or something like that, doesn't ring any sense. The Mega Drive was based on the arcade boards. The Dreamcast, as far as I know, was also based on the arcade technology. And so it makes common sense to me the Sega Saturn was based on the arcade technology at the time. And if you look at Virtual Fighter 2 and the graphics of Virtual Fighter 2 and what it was at the arcade, you can see the resemblance of the pretty much identical graphics. So, and Sega Rally as well, pretty much identical graphics to the arcade. So there's no way Sega will go, oh, let's release all these arcades, but then bring out a £300 console and make it 2D. That just makes no sense at all. There's no truth in that, in my opinion. And all these videos that are promoting this, I don't understand why they're promoting that theory, because that theory just rings absolute bullshit to me. But that's what it is. I mean, there's no way I could see Sega releasing a 2D console in 1994 to 1995. Absolute no way. By 1992, as I said, Virtual Fighter was in the arcade. They released Virtual Racing in 3D on the Sega Mega Drive. You honestly think they're going to put a 3D game on a Sega Mega Drive, bring out the next generation console, and be completely 2D? That makes no sense at all. What would be the point in that? You know, they failed anyway, but they would have failed even 10 times harder if they just left an upgrade 2D console, because people were, the PlayStation was 3D. Namco were doing 3D games. Sega, as I said, must have had 25 plus 3D games in the arcade at that time. There's no way they would have said, oh, let's just leave our games in the arcade. You know, we don't want them in the home house or anything. We don't want to bring the arcades home like we've been doing with the Mega Drive. No, we wouldn't want to do that, would we? No, of course not. Of course they would. Of course they would bring the arcades home. That's what Sega's been doing since the beginning. They're an arcade giant, and they brought the arcade games at the time, what were big and successful in the arcade, to the home through their own technology and their own game consoles. So that was my take on the Sega Saturn. Just wanted to get that out there because I'm fed up of seeing videos saying Sega was producing a 2D console, what makes no sense to me at all. And that was my argument, really. I mean, if someone wants to put stuff in the comments and tell me why they think Sega would make a 2D console when they had all those 3D arcade games and a 3D 32X and a virtual racing 3D on the Mega Drive, then go ahead. But it makes absolutely no sense to me why Sega would do that. Anyway, if anyone was watching this video, thanks for watching.